Emma reached out to me and asked if I was up for answering a bunch of questions from her and her followers on Instagram Live. I said yes, and Emma agreed that we actually could share the recording as a little extra episode to our podcast. You can find Emma on Instagram and on Substack under the name Ozina, where she shares her writing as a mother honoring motherhood. Please check her out. You can, of course, find the links in our show notes. And now I will hope you will enjoy this little extra episode of our podcast.
To start, I will tell you a little bit about our journey so you have an idea and you know why I contacted you to do this part. There was never a point like, oh, we are unschooling, but it has been more of a continuum journey. So I started this platform on Instagram basically when my first daughter, who is 6 now, was a baby, and I wanted to express myself and open the horizon. So we have 3 children. The oldest is 6, the middle is 3.5, and the youngest is the 1-year-old baby. So we are still in a phase of early childhood, but there has never been a point where we are like, okay, now they need to go away, you know.
No.
So I have been more searching in the topic and connecting with homeschoolers, unschoolers, and our homeschooling community in Slovakia is sharing all your things all the time. So I was listening to your podcast, and I was like, yes, I love these guys, and I want to know more. And so I have been sharing on my platform about home birth, about breastfeeding, about how is it to be a mother, how is it to raise your children in home environment, having a support community around and stuff like that. And interestingly, unschooling is one of those tricky topics, I would say, because people get triggered with it. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Where to start? First, the fun thing about homeschooling and unschooling is I think it's a thing for us parents. If your children grow up at home with their parents, they are not by themselves thinking, hey, when can I leave this family life? It is us who are still in a process of needing to be school to understand that for learning, the school system is needed. Now, our oldest is 23. We have one who is 16, one who is 13, and our youngest is 10. So we are far down the road, and my beard is also starting to get a little gray and all that. So we have been on this travel for many years.
Yes.
Still, what I realize is it's not strange for the children, but it is us parents who still are in the process of removing the normal society from our life and understanding. And when we meet other people, then we try just to answer them politely because it is not important for me to get their recognition. Me and my wife are very happy with what we do. We don't need strangers who are posing to unschool to convince them that it's the right thing. If people come to us, then we will happily share. And if it's people who are really interested, but sometimes people can find that very weird. But that's just society and its crazy norms. But the people who are often aggressive, it's the people who are hurting inside in my world.
And I find it very often that homeschoolers switch to the system when they have the internal fight themselves. They cannot decide, and it creates this tension. And at the end, homeschooling is not possible because this and that, you will find. But if you have resolved inside of you and you will really feel that this is the way that works for the family and for you, for the
Yeah.
like you mentioned, it's absolutely normal for them.
It's absolutely normal. Me and my wife coached a couple who are just starting out with this Monday was their first time, didn't send their kids to a school. And this kid should start in school, and the parents was up and running about it. Oh, it's wild. And I had to say to them, you know what, your daughter, she doesn't care. She has been raised at home, and for her, not going to school is not special. She's just still at home.
Yeah.
So often it is us parents who are in what we call the deschooling process of spreading
Oh,
the society.
yes. Could you tell a bit more? What is this schooling?
Yes, it's imagine having been in school for 10 years and growing up with the idea that this is normal. And a lot of people who home or unschooled, they have also chosen to go to a university or something else. So the parents around us, I only went the normal years in public school and then 3 on a gymnasium, but I didn't want it to do university. But my wife has been 6 years to university and has a very high degree in psychology, and a lot of the homeschoolers also. And we have been raised in believing that the only place you can learn stuff is in a school setting.
Make friends also, no? It's what
Yeah,
make friends and learn stuff on the school.
yeah, and that's what we believe. And I'm not here to bash or talk bad about the school system, but sometimes during our talk, I will mention some of the stuff I find very weird with school. For example, the idea that learning only takes place if you're sitting down 28 to 30 people who were born in the same year in a classroom. That's the only place you can learn. That has been imprinted into our mind because we have been in school for so many years. But it's quite fun because if you meet a person who is on having a career and stuff, often they are not using what they learned in university.
Oh.
What you can learn in a university and in a school setting is you can learn to learn and you can learn to obtain knowledge and you can get different system you can use to address a problem. But
Yeah.
that is also something you can do just by learning to live and handling the processes that are around you. So the deschooling is for the parents to understand this on a deeper level, to be able to take the schooling out of yourself.
Yeah.
And often we meet people like this couple me and my wife coached this morning. They are in the process where it's normal for people to use some, I call them mental crutches. It's, oh, I'm responsible for my child's education. Then they take the school at home and buy the same books as the children in the school have. And then they sit in front of the desk in the kitchen and they do some stuff. And we did that when we started also.
Well,
Uh,
we have never had this kind of not a problem, but transition with my husband because we went through the schooling system with knowing that these things don't serve us and our qualities are somewhere completely else.
Yeah.
And we are like aware of our and we know when we use them, we are successful.
yeah.
In a way that only means we are happy on a daily basis. It's not in a term of successful, but
It is the biggest success. And that's also a fun idea that you get imprinted by society is, oh, I find it interesting that so many people, and if, let me start another place. If you look at the amount of self-help courses out there today, then you must answer if the schooling system have some flaws. How can they succeed in making so many broken people? who don't know what they want in life. They are not sure when they are happy. They are not content with just waking up in the morning, seeing the sun and the birds and the trees and feeling that they are okay. And I was in school for 12 years. I can still have days where I am in search for the external praise from the outer world. Just this spring, I left my career behind because we now have our own different projects we earn money on. We have some investments and stuff. So it was much easier going to work than doing this like we have now, for example. Because then very quickly, then I could just, there came a paycheck, and the paycheck is a symbol of, hey, you are a good human being, you have done your deeds, and now you can be proud because you earned some money. But it's not a question of if I was happy. And that is the most important thing I believe we can do for our children. And that is the added bonus of homeschooling and worldschooling is that, and unschooling is that your children learn to pick out who they are without being in a setting that is not normal. It is not normal to take 28 people who only have one thing in common or two. They are born inside the same kind of area and they are born the same year. That's all they have in common. That's weird, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know how old you are.
I'm 27.
Oh, we shouldn't talk. I'm 47. Then I should only talk with people who are 47 because that is what, until you are finished with school, that is what is social life. Talking with other people the same age as you. And it's really weird if you think about what they call normal.
Yeah.
It's actually crazy.
Yeah. And then you end up having these children who are 10. They prefer to stay around the group and year-olds and their friends kind of because
But that is because it becoming normal if you take and put children into a school setting because you break the close bond between parents and children, and the children ends up having their school mates as their primary contact. I believe that children's primary contact should be the parent. And of course, it can be provocative to say that this is broken, but if you decide to not be together with your children for 8 or 10 hours a day, then it's quite wild. We are staying with homeschooling families. And that's one of the wonderful things about traveling full time is that you reach out to people like you who also homeschool, and this family, they have a giant farm where we have stayed with them now several years, where we come back and now we're here just 10 days. Sometimes we have been here a month, and our children are friends and we are friends.
Yes, that is a big advantage you have right there to be traveling, right? And one day I hope to come to the sanctuary in Spain where you're staying most of the time.
For people who don't know our story, then 5 years ago, in the summer of 2018, we set out in a big red bus from 1973 and decided that we would travel all over Europe in it. But it runs 2 kilometers per liter of diesel, which is crazy. And it turned out it wasn't very fun to drive in 11-ton car. It's difficult to park. You don't go to the beach in it. You don't go shopping. And we ended up having it parked next to an animal sanctuary where it has been for some years now. And then we have actually 2 other cars. We have a small one. Small in my world is a Volkswagen Caravelle we can sleep in. And then we have recently rebuilt a new tiny house on wheels, which is Mercedes Sprinter, which is 7 meters. So we are parked next to, this animal sanctuary, and it's wonderful. But now we have been there, we have lived there, and we have seen it. No, so we are parked next to an animal sanctuary where we volunteer for a lot of the time, but now we want to travel more. So I think we will only be there a little.
Mm-hmm.
There was one called Rights of Love. I can see who's have asked at some point, do you plan to eventually use a light classical or a little classical education with deductive reasoning as the focus on healthy father authority? And I would love for you to help me deduct what the question is actually about. Father authority. We are parents in a very different way. We try to only speak to our children in a way that I would also speak respectfully to my wife. And it's a quite difficult task if you give yourself it.
Mm-hmm.
Ask yourself, the way you talk to your children, would you ever talk to a grown-up person like that?
Yes,
If not,
let's talk about this and give you
yeah,
suggestions.
it is super, super. And of course, I believe all of us sometimes fall in the now you need ordering kind of business towards our children because we are filled with flaws and were brought up this way. But I strive to talk to my children as someone I actually love and respect, and who I believe respect me back.
And
So I don't do a lot of
what
fatherly authority. Sorry.
what feedback do you feel like it works? Do you feel like it's a process of couple years? Do you feel like
I
on
feel like I have become a much better parent during the years, and there's a lot of different reasons. One is my knowledge of the world and stuff around me is a lot bigger than when I was 30, when I became dad the first time. And you also see how you affect your children. If you lose your temper and end up shouting, which I believe every parent at some point might have done, I know I have, then you see it's just a mess, and it takes longer time because then you need to say you're sorry to your kids, which you are, and you need to help them get in a good mood, and you need to rework on recreating the trust in the relationship. So it takes shorter time to actually get what you want by.
and also the kind of mimic the behavior, no?
Oh yes, and that's where we are also the fruits of our parents. So it's a big development. I just looked up for fun. I haven't been beaten as a child, so that's not about it. But it was first in 1997 in Denmark that it became illegal to hit your children. That's wild. And in the States, it's still legal for people. And I actually think it says a lot about how people become adults and how they have aggression in their relationship if they have been beaten as a child. And I can't understand that countries where it's still lawfully right to smack your child. It's just crazy to, and we talk a lot with our children about ageism because they meet it a lot in the world, that people talk down to them, or sometimes we can be out in a social setting where people say hi to us and not our children. And our children are like, what the fuck is going on? I'm right here. I'm a human being. Come on. They are polite enough to not say it to the person, but we talk about it afterwards. It was strange. Why don't they say hi to us? So I try to remember it all the time. So of course, children can be shy and you can end up thinking, oh, I shouldn't disturb the child, but it's a human being. It's just a younger human being.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about also looking for the right people, like you were saying, we just move somewhere where would you say that unschooling is also possible if you are not full-time traveling?
Absolutely. There is unschooling is a word that is easy for people to understand. It's, it's school, but it's not school. But actually, we don't do any form of classical, of, we just don't believe in schooling and we don't believe
You
in
don't
curriculums. No,
follow
nothing. We don't follow anything. We don't even unschool. We are just living our lives because learning is a byproduct of living. And if you succeed, and that's where it's difficult for parents who have been in the school system, if you succeed to not kill your child's lust to learn, the humans are very curious. Otherwise, we wouldn't have built all this shit around us and made phones and stuff. Humans are some of the most curious species on earth, and we love to explore and learn and get knowledge. And this is what is sometimes killed if you force education onto a child. And this is what we try not to do with our children. We try to grab when they are interested in something, we guide them, we help them to seek information. And right now, my 16-year-old, for example, he is studying 3 or 4 different things he finds interesting. And some of it is storytelling in books, different story formats, because he reads a lot, and also in games, how you build up characters, how you build up world, and a lot of stuff. And he explains a lot of it to me, and I try to be interested, but that part doesn't, it, it triggers me that I love to hear him talk, but it's not a subject that is as interesting for me. So I divert the talk sometimes and talk about stuff I find interesting. But to say, can you unschool without traveling? Absolutely. The biggest part of unschooling, I believe, is to not kill your child, to not force your child to believe that education is boring by saying they need to do different stuff. And then there is a big difference between what I call unparenting and unschooling. Some people, they read books about unschooling and end up believing that you are not allowed to be yourself as a parent, that you should, oh, if my child wants to game a computer all days, then I should just be fine with it because I'm an unschooler. But if you're not fine with it, you're still the parent. You're still a human being living in that family. Then you need to speak your mind. I'm not fine with my children playing the whole day. I say what I feel about it. And that is okay to do. But there's a better term than unschooling. But as I said, we are just living. We don't do terms or isms, but there is a better term I like, which is called self-directed learning.
Yes.
And it covers it more, but unschooling is a more easy word for people. Common and easy word to understand, but the self-directed learning explains it more.
In my area in Slovakia, unschooling is not even known. It's just homeschooling. But homeschooling really is something I, as a human, cannot comprehend and imagine in our family setting to have. It would be very structured. There would be lots of tension and fighting with children, and it would just not be flowing. And
No.
just have good weather and you go swimming instead of doing what you planned. And so,
But it is for many people who start out. I know it's for many people who start out, then it's a very, it's, I call it crutches. If you have broken your leg, it's like a way to start out. You take the school home and
Yeah.
then you start feeling good about that you can take that responsibility. And it's quite wild to take over the responsibility for your child, because a lot of people have what I call outsourced the responsibility.
Mm.
And I don't understand where I am today that people actually dare do it. But I
Yeah.
understand it is easier if your child haven't learned to read at whatever age the schooling system says it should, then it's not your fault. It's not your child's fault. It's the teacher's fault.
But
So
you know,
it's about,
what do they call it? When you learn something, you get this from the others, you get this sensation of, oh, I'm worthy. And it's also why I don't choose education in the system, because I don't want their self-worth to be based on something they
yeah,
oh,
you're absolutely that.
draw this. Oh my God, you're such a good girl. No, like we don't do punishments, we don't do rewards, we don't. I
No,
such a start to life also to live, build your own self-worth, and what you were saying, connection to, like, I am just happy because I am, and I see the self, I'm alive. And
yes,
self-worth is another big topic, because you you have my generation who are like constantly looking for that kind of reward, applause.
absolutely. And we have been raised with by, if you're your age, then the social media have been around for a bigger part of your life, and the schooling system also have started to work with you can get stars and stuff like that. And we are in a place where we don't do chores. It's not, we believe, and it takes longer time, that our children should, for example, help at home.
By themselves,
Because
because they are family,
first
or
of all, they understand that, hey, it's a family, and if I take part, then mom and dad have more time to do fun stuff. And to see the value, and it would be much easier to just say, go do this, than to ask politely and talk with your children and make them understand the value of what they're doing. But it also
you know
makes
what?
them understand their value.
Yeah, you know what? They That's funny. The little children who are just little, they just want to help all the time.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
like, I would have done it in 20 minutes, but okay, let's do it together slowly. And that's what
Yeah.
this learning at home, that we cook for an hour, but it's an activity.
Ooh, yeah. And I remember when the iPads came, we saw ourselves one day is giving our kid an iPad because it was easier. And then we were like, okay, what are we doing? What is wrong here? But, and of course, parents do it, and we have done it as well. We are no saints, but I think the most important thing me and my wife does in our personal travel as parents is that we take the talks, and also when we fuck up, when we say, okay, did I really just give my child an iPad because I wanted to talk with you instead of involving my the child in our talk? Okay, let's be better. Always strive to be better and to accept that we don't punish ourselves, but I just admit here with the talk to you how we have done as well, because otherwise people can think, oh, I'm a bad parent. No, but you're a parent who maybe are drained because you've been at work 10 hours away, and then you don't care to use time with your child because it talks so much, and you need to do the dishes and cook and have food and have something ready for tomorrow. And then it's easier to just, yeah, let someone else handle it. For example, an iPad. And that is quite sad when you get down to looking at it.
Mm.
But it's understandable because people are drained, because they are spending too much time on work
Mm.
or social media.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Also, find this interesting that if whatever situation there is, you resolve that, and there is no other way. Oh, just and
Yeah.
it's a big gift because yeah, it would be easy to drop the kid in the morning, see it in the evening, or whatever, go to this class
Yeah.
just around and then it would be an easier option, but also you lose an opportunity to show them from a human perspective. Look, I make mistakes, but I can make progress, or I can resolve with my partner, or I don't know, big part of my family is my
Absolutely.
friend is seeing how I interact with my family, meaning my parents, and seeing the evolution of the relationship. And I don't hide from them. I say as it is, and I explain, and I try to do my best. And that's also part of this experience that you don't separate your parts of your life and just involve your child where it's suitable or whatever.
No. Yeah. And a fun thing when I look back at the educational history and also just how we take care of children today, then I'm 47. When I grew up, it was something like 10 to 15% only that was in nursery homes,
Yeah.
where today it is 80 or 85 in Denmark.
Yeah.
And that's on 40 years, it has changed from being weird to send your child to a nursing home, and kindergarten was more normal. But if you go back to the 50s in Denmark, which is only 70 years, then kindergartens were only for poor people where there was only one parent. So that parent couldn't both work and be at home. So it was places to store your child where you was out working.
Oh,
And today it has become the norm that we somehow, I believe that I don't believe it's freedom for women to separate from their children. I believe that part of the freedom fight, there's no doubt that stuff was wrong, the way women were treated earlier. But now, if you can work from home, or if you as a couple can decide that one of the parents stay at home, then the ultimate freedom is to be able to choose to stay with what matters most, which is
yeah.
the light.
Hmm.
Yeah. But the whole unschooling and yeah, I end up talking a lot. So please ask questions if you have something specific.
Couple questions. I wanted to ask about two things. So I give you the two questions so you can
Yes. Yes.
going on. First one is so to give a backup story is you were your son was starting to be school age. You took him to try the school. He didn't like it, and he never went. Then you tried the homeschooling, but you were just like, no, we are just gonna live life.
Yeah.
And then we're still in one place. You still didn't travel, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
and so they were little. They were
Yeah.
like years apart. No,
Then, yeah. The
and
story. No, sorry. No, please. Yeah.
and I
That's
just because my kids are still very small, but it's very sometimes it can get challenging because they have so many needs of little tiny humans, and I want to be there and help them with everything. And they're just learning to work with their emotions.
Yep.
You know, it can be completely something different than when they are 10. So I cannot imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. So that what I feel inside your question is, okay, sometimes as a parent, I don't feel that I'm doing it good enough towards my children.
Oh,
And the fun way to turn that around is you are one person to 3 children, right?
no, we are at home with my partner, both of us, and
Okay. Then you're 2 parents to 3 children. Okay. Let's take a school setting. Or let's say they are not in school yet. It gets worse when they're in school. Kindergarten, there might be 3 adults to 22 children. So who do you think will do the better job? Yes, you will be a shitty mom sometimes. You will be drained. You haven't slept good enough, and you don't feel you're doing it good enough, maybe. But the alternative,
yeah,
3 adults that are foreign from your children, that don't have loved them with all of their heart in the same way. Who do you think does the better job? And I think it's very easy. So yes, of course, it is. Your children will also see you when you aren't filled with energy.
I just
Of
want
course.
if it changes a lot how it is when they are old.
Yeah, it's life is complicated and it's just different stuff. Some of it is a lot easier. Going to the toilet as an adult alone with one baby on leg. If you haven't tried that, have you then truly lived? That changes. You get the toilet to yourself, for example, or you can take a shower without make sure that everybody is okay. So you get more free time.
Like,
And when they start to read, it's wonderful.
it's
When
like
they start to read, yeah,
from going to make them sleep, nap times, packing for trip, and I give myself
yeah,
peace and respect for that I'm capable, and
yeah,
I
yeah.
thank God
But
that.
I don't know if you, with the sleeping, some people call it co-sleep.
Yeah,
It was a term. We just sleep. Uh, uh, it's not an ism.
that,
It's not a book we have read. We just go to sleep, sleep in the same bed. And we actually still prefer to sleep in the same room because it's just nice. It's nice to be able to hear each other breathe and you sit with each a book. So yes, it gets easier when they start to read. That's fantastic. But then when they become teenagers, it's a wide transition in a life to become a teenager. You go through so many emotions and then you are the ones they talk with, which is wonderful. But sometimes you can have a teenager just talking for 3 hours. And so it's different challenges.
yeah.
But I wouldn't change it.
Yeah. So the dynamics of siblinghood. That's what you ask. Would you
Yeah.
supporting the relationship that they are growing up this way? That it is a plus on their siblinghood.
Yeah. Cecilia has written a very short but wonderful article about the sibling jealousy. And basically what she says in it is sibling jealousy comes from the children not feeling seen and heard by their parents.
Mm.
So they like each other, but they want the they want to be fooled by their parents and understood and heard.
Yes, we had. Sorry to interrupt you. We had
No, please.
bit of. I just give an example. We had so our daughter was born 1 year ago, and maybe when she was half year, our oldest started to be jealous of the father And we realized what we did was like the middle one went to him super like this, and the small one was with me, and she was like, what do I do? And then it was about my husband who had to reestablish the relationship with her from not being a baby anymore who needs all this, but from being also like little, like a child already, not a baby but a child, and to give her this I see you, and we do this activity of drawing together, and we do bicycling together, and I have interesting talks with you. And that's when the jealousy disappeared. Took
Of
up,
course.
it took
Yeah.
up, and
But
for me
but
it was
it's
very intense emotionally, because
of course.
what do I do? What do I do? But it was, I couldn't really do anything because she wanted to reestablish that with Thomas. And
Of course.
that's also a beautiful learning we had. It's,
And it is just super wild. I talk from experience of our oldest. We had her on an alternative school. That was our personal journey. I believe you family number 4 or 5 or 6 or something in Denmark that started homeschooling in that period. Maybe there was more, but it was so uncommon. We hadn't heard about it. And we didn't know the options. So our oldest went to school, but a very alternative preschool based on a French reformist called Celestine Frané, where they do a very interesting thing in a school, which is they have groups from you are 6 years to 12 years, and you go in the same group. So they don't believe in ageism in that way. But I remember the feeling I had with our oldest, where whatever there was, I searched for the responsibility to be placed outside the family, because we had outsourced her education and emotional well-being in
Mhm.
those hours.
Yeah.
And it is, and I think it's okay to accept that it is actually quite hard to take on the responsibility
Mhm.
of your child's emotional well-being and education.
But
Um,
it's so simple. You just ask them, like,
yeah, but it doesn't mean you can get into an inner
yeah,
turmoil. Am I doing it good enough?
uh,
But if,
you
if
just
you
ask.
aren't questioning yourself, you aren't doing it good enough.
Yeah.
That's the important part.
Yes, we also had a moment during this jealousy phase that we were like, okay, we will go and see some alternative
Yeah.
school,
There must be someone else who can fix it for us.
and we went to see the alternative school, and we went and we loved it. I was like, oh, I want to go. I want to go to this.
Yeah.
And we went home, and I asked the children, and they were like, no.
No.
But
Oh,
but to them, the concept of going there even was like distant galaxy. Like they would not comprehend it or something. So
we actually try to ask our children still if they want to go to school. And one of them said, yeah, that could be fun. One of our girls, she was like, that could be fun. How is it? And we said, it's every day. That's crazy. And I was thinking maybe once a month could be fun or something. Yes. And I just loved that. She
well,
was like, yeah, it could be fun,
there are
fun to try.
more unschooler gatherings. So,
Yes. Yeah. There's something in Germany here in September where we hope to meet other people, and we have just we should have been to something in the UK, but then we travel and meet with unschoolers on our travels, or wherever people are in their journeys. Some people start with homeschooling, some it's
and So you just meet people on regular basis also outside of.
You can, people is not difficult, but the, it, again, the schooling process, it's quite fun that you as an adult believe that children need to be surrounded by 27 or 28 people on their same age, and that they need to have at least 2 or 3 play dates a week, and they need to hang out with friends. If you turn that around and look at yourself and look how you as an adult can prefer to live, I do not want to be socially active with a lot of friends 3 to 4 times a week. When I
I
want to
just
be socially active, when I want to be socially active, it's 1 or 2 good friends and maybe 2 times a week maximum. 1 is fine enough. Some of my best friends, one of my best and oldest friends, we talk every year, every second year. We are what I call now, we are live, what's the word? Not watchers, but we are like, we follow each other's life on a deep emotional level. And we'll find a witness, life witness. He's a witness to my life, and I'm a witness to his life.
yeah.
And that we're cool enough with talking 2 times a year. And we feel emotionally very fantastic. And it's one of my best friends. And turning that around to my children, actually, when we talk with them about visiting their friends, they're like, yeah, it could be, I would like to see him maybe during the fall. It's fine. And then they hang out for some days and then they have a good balance. Right now, actually, we have one of my son, who is 16's best friends. We got to know them when he was in Denmark as 10 years old. His mom wrote out in the Danish homeschool community, any homeschoolers out there, I would love to come and meet. And we were like, yeah, come and you can stay with us for some days. And then they lived together with us for a week. And our children became friends, even though they didn't share language. And then we went and visited them in France. And now, and that's also a fun way unschooling and homeschooling can work, and world school. His mom, he was in a state where he was like, Mom, I really want to be better at speaking English. And she was like, why don't you go and try to live with someone and speak English? I don't want to do that. But what if it's the Conrads? You could just go on, stay with them for a month. And she know how we are. And so she called us and said, hey, can Swan come and hang out with you guys for a month? And we were like, yes, but we are traveling in a 7-meter car. So we built a bed on top of the driver's seat and the co-pilot seat for him. And then he's been together with us now for 5 weeks and go home on Tuesday. And his sole goal was to force himself into a reality where he needed to speak English.
Wow.
Yeah. And now his English have improved like crazily during 5 weeks, because often it's the question of daring, because you have the vocabulary, but you're not used to using it. He still has a very French accent, and it's fun. And I can only say baguette, so we don't talk a lot in French.
Also, I get a situation like this, what you just described. You don't, okay, I don't want to offend anyone who is in the school system, but you have this opportunity to have just random things falling into your life.
Yeah. There's space for it. And our oldest is 23. Our youngest is 10. And at some point I did a calculation saying how many years would we be forced to live around this school? It was a fantastic school. And it was more than 20 years we would have children in school. And that was just terrifying, because it also meant that I, as a person, needed to live the same place. And if you start to looking at the world like that, then you ask yourself, how much of my life is planned for how many years ahead, because I want my child to be in a school. Because you want your child to be in a school, then you also end up in a reality where you need a house and it needs to be close to the school.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you need, and if it's far away from the school, you need 2 cars maybe and stuff like that. So there's so many choices in people's life that wanting to not being around their children.
One important, interesting questions I wanted to ask was about your project that you have coming up, and about the coaching you do, and about, so when there is 5 people in the family, everyone has something they want to fulfill their own cup. And also it includes the parents. And
Yes.
you will always have to discuss these things. Otherwise, you have one person who,
Oh, yes. And you only discuss more the older they get.
yeah,
Yeah. And the reality of that is that we talk a lot together and with our children, and we try to make plans, but then stuff happens that comes up that are interesting, and then we do something else. But there's a lot of talking, and we try to plan in chunks where it's okay, we want to be in Germany for 14 days, and then everybody have a say in what they want to see. And then we want to go to France. And now we actually have the longest plan now. We go to Sweden in a week, then we come back to Denmark, or here for a week, then we go to Germany for 1 to 2 weeks, then we go to France, to Normandy. Then we want to go to walk the Camino. So we will walk the Camino. Then we will stay a little in Barcelona. And then I'm already stressed out by all these things. So I'm like, can we find a place to just chill? So we will try to find a place during the winter to just hang out for some months. But so a lot of planning. And most of all, the most important part is to not have a parent-led decision on what is important. So
yes.
we keep remembering to ask our children, what is it you want?
Can you talk a bit about your project?
Yes.
Okay.
We are in love with an instrument called a handpan. So we have made an online course platform where people can learn about the handpan. Then we coach people. Cecilia is a trained psychologist. Basically, we say to people, hey, you're okay. There's nothing wrong with you. Chill. It's the world that is crazy. It's not you. There you can save a lot of money just remembering those words. It's the world that is crazy.